Good evening, Mr. and Mrs. America, and all the ships at sea. I've been thinking some lately, and that can be dangerous, at least for charlatans and crooks who think they have the wool pulled over the fleeced masses. Do you, friends and colleagues, ever realize how much we as a people in the United States of America have been lied to? I mean, in all seriousness, the tally is massive, folks. In fact, it can be duly noted that this puppet's head began to spin when I consider the massive fraud that has been foisted upon the American populace over generations, even centuries, all while we pretend to be a democratic nation. Where can this rag doll even begin? Have you ever heard that ours is a free market economic system? Well, I'm about to tell you why that is a complete farce, and it is time to see past the entire facade. This puppet has noticed something severely amiss with supposed free markets in the United States for quite some time now. That, my friends, would be collusion and monopolistic practices getting in the way. Now, I realize there is an alphabet agency in the United States called the Federal Trade Commission, or FTC for short, supposedly created to ensure fair market competition and to eliminate monopolistic business practices. Allow me to say that they have failed substantially over the decades since they were created in 1914 by President Woodrow Wilson. Want some examples? Okay. Why is it that under Biden inflation, whenever we saw canned vegetables increase threefold in price, we never saw prices like $1.19 a can or $1.23 a can? No, it always happened in nice round number increments. Now, puppet, you're picking at straws here, some might say. Hold on, you see. Why is it that something as simple as a can of green beans that used to cost 59 cents a can now regularly lists at $1 or even $1.50 a can in some cases? Nothing in there like 89 cents or 94 cents. Nope. Seems just a bit like price fixing it to the marble eyes of this hand puppet, yet FTC nor any government oversight arms got involved to stop it. How can we have free markets whereby one competing grocer might decide to price the canned potatoes at 74 cents one day in order to beat the price of the other shop across town, charging the nice even $1 per can? At least in my neck of the woods, this common free market tactic never materialized. That said, you do have some stores charging less for their canned vegetables than others, but take a look at the pricing increments and ask why they're almost always nice around $1 or $1.50 marks these days. Take a look, if you will, at the American car and truck market. Ask yourself, why are their new motor vehicles prices literally through the roof of late? Is that by sheer forces of supply and demand? I think not. One only has to look yearly at the large number of unsold cars and trucks still sitting on dealership lots. If the high prices were driven by the market force of demand, would those still be gathering dust there? No. I could continue on the topic alone with issues like why there are only two major satellite television programming providers after there were more than a few years ago, and how the less competitors there are in a given industry or market sector inevitably leads to price fixing. But this video would stretch out longer than I want it to. Maybe I will touch on some of those in a future video. Onward ho! Something else we have all been lied to about? How about many of the embezzlements of our federal tax dollars that Doge has uncovered in only 2.5 months? You know, why are we just now finding out that the U.S. government funded transgender operas in Colombia to the tune of millions of dollars? Not that we were ever informed that many of these expenses were in fact having massive money squandered on them, because we were not, but simply the fact that our federal government at all levels and in both major parties continued the embezzlement, fraud, and entire ruse for at least a century, and probably longer. Yes, loyal viewers, every politician up to now involved in the United States federal government knew about the fraud, said nothing, and even conspired to cover the crimes up. Both parties, even such lauded people as Ronald Reagan, John F. Kennedy, and Dwight Eisenhower, took part. You know what else we were lied to about and bought hook, line, and sinker? The promise that alphabet agencies were for the betterment of the United States and were to serve the people. Ha ha ha! I mean, after all we have seen, especially during the Biden cartel reign of terror, I think we can throw that one out the window. But viewers, it can well be stated that going decades back, things were really not any better with the agencies that Franklin Roosevelt and the U.S. Congress established during the 1930s. Was the FBI ever an up-and-up agency under Edgar Hoover? I think we can all safely say no to that one. Was the CIA not involved illicitly in killing off Central and South American dictators during the 1940s to the 1970s? Yes. Has the CIA not recently attempted a coup within the U.S. by conspiring to overthrow President Trump? You would have to be blind to say otherwise. Other lies we have been told here in the USA. Remember when you were young and still in grade in high school, there was this diagram we all saw repeatedly called the food pyramid? Yes, that food pyramid, the one that said we each need 2 to 3 servings of dairy daily, 2 to 3 servings of meat, 3 to 5 servings of vegetables, 2 to 4 servings of fruit, and an earth-shattering 6 to 11 servings of breads and grains each and every day. Is it any wonder that childhood obesity epidemic is in full swing? Oh, the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services did say to use fats, oils, and sweets sparingly, so that makes it okay to gorge oneself to gigantic proportions on the other food groups. Right. This, friends and colleagues, is where most kids' distrust of U.S. government begins, and rightfully so. Speaking on the topic of lies our government placed upon us in grade school, does anyone beside myself remember the story told to all third graders that our first U.S. president, yes, Mr. George Washington himself, was so honest that he could not tell a lie, even to the extent that he chopped down his father's cherry tree and then had to confess his sin when his father asked him about it? Total made-up malarkey, folks. We might as well be teaching Santa Claus and Easter Bunny in classroom as fact, also if we are perpetuating the George Washington lies to the innocent children. Now maybe you are saying, Puppet, this is minor stuff you are harping on here. Not to harp, viewers, just to point out the depths that the U.S. government has dropped to lie to its own citizens over time. Let's move on, kids and cousins, to the next area where yours and my government fed us a complete line of bovine fecal matter. Weapons of mass destruction. Where have we heard that before? Well, that would be GWB, or Bush the Jr., and his compatriot Richard Cheney. It's all we heard was that Saddam Hussein had the dreaded weapons of mass destruction and was ready to set them to use on any enemy who got on his bad side. Complete BS, folks. Have we ever seen the evidence? Nope, nada. Okay, let's just admit that Bush's and Cheney's noses grew substantially in length over those years. Me seems to remember in my tiny puppet brain a time when we were all told by lamestream media and even the CIA that the Hunter Biden laptop from Hades was total Russian disinformation. Yes, folks, we were all fed that lie down our throats until our windpipes were sore. In fact, John Paul McIsaac, the Delaware computer shop owner, where Hunter Biden dropped the now infamous hotbed of evidence for the crimes of the Biden crime cartel, had to close up shop and even flee due to death threats, and all for the simply turning the laptop from Hades foolishly over to the criminally compromised FBI and Chris Wray, and having told the truth about its contents to numerous lamestream media mouthpieces. Of particular interest is that the FBI ended up using evidence on said laptop for their mock trial and conviction of Hunter Biden on gun charges. Yep, they used literal Russian disinformation to convict the son of Felon Joe. Go figure. So, friends and compadres, what do we make of all of this? Well, suffice it to say that over the past 10 plus years, basically every conspiracy theory has turned out to be the truth. So after this puppet has just laid out for you the myriad ways that the United States government has lied and falsified information over your lifetimes, I believe it is safe to say that we all should use caution when our government tells us anything, especially when they push it with a sense of importance of urgency. Tony Fauci is living proof of that, after all. Good night, my loyal viewers, and sleep well.